Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this, our Design Review Board for Monday, March 22nd. I'd like to call to order the meeting. First, any declaration of conflict of interest? Everybody okay in that regard? Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, maybe just for the record, you commented about Mr. Gillis as declared a...
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. Mr. Brian Gillis will not be with us tonight. He's declared a conflict of interest in as much as it's APM that's the sole issue. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Could approval of the agenda for today, moved by Ken McGinnis, seconded by Chris Fournier. Any discussion on the issue? Having no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried unanimously, which would be, I guess, 5-0. Adoption of the minutes. We had minutes from March the 1st, back at the first of the month. You had the weekend, I think, to review them. Any problems with the minutes? Do I have a mover to move the minutes? Moved by Ken McGinnis, second by Greg Munn, that the minutes be adopted as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried 5-0. We have one piece of business arising. Business arising from the minutes. Is there any business from the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
keep
sure.
bringing this up. Number 7, new business. Want to ask Mr. Forbes again, the timeline on the design review that we made a decision last year on Fitzroy's parkade facade. Any update on where we're going with it?
Your Worship, all of the approvals have been granted for that, and the design review component is complete. It's just a matter of, because of the expenditure required, it was sent on to council for a council decision regarding the budget.
Does it go through Public Works, or does it go through what department? Line department?
I would assume it's Public Works.
Public Works?
It could be, but it's one of the CADC projects that we oversee, so I'm not really certain.
Okay.
But this group, the Design Review Board, has done their work on that. It's just a matter of when it gets funded.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, no problem. We have one report having to do with 199 Grafton Street, and Laurel Thompson is our presenter. The floor is yours, Laurel.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Councillor Yankoff.
Yeah, my apologies.
No problem.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is a proposal for a 6-story multi-unit building consisting of 4 stories of apartments on top of a 2-story parking garage at grade with 4 additional units and a lobby at ground level. There's also 1 level of underground parking. For the most part, I'll leave this slide up, and then when I get through my report, I will kind of flip through the slides and discuss some of that. So the proposal includes a bonus height application. The applicant has indicated in their submission that the project is to be affordable housing. And these components of the application will be deferred to Planning Board, Planning Committee, and the city's affordable housing incentive program at a later date to confirm all their approvals. The current request now is to approve the design proposal. So section 7.1 of the zoning and development bylaw requires new buildings within the 500 lot area to undergo design review process. And the basic reason for this is to ensure that the architectural design of buildings within the 500 lot area maintains a higher quality of design and is constructed with a consistent type and quality of materials which complements the surrounding buildings in the area. So the applicant's submission was included in the board's package, and that submission was sent to an independent reviewer who was Peter Fellows, and he's a licensed architect in New Brunswick. Peter has also performed other design reviews for us before, so you may be familiar with him. On March 19th, Mr. Fellows submitted his formal review back to the city, and some of the main points that Mr. Fellows identified in his review were that this particular parcel of land is unique because of its irregular shape. For example, the lot has characteristics of a corner lot, an interior lot, and a through lot. For review purposes, he considered it for the most part to be a through lot. He indicated the massing is well done with its use of inset balconies and a modern cornice look topping the structure. He did have two areas of concern with the facades of Clark Street, with two areas of concern with the facades. The Clark Street would look better and be more desirable if it had the same brick as Prince Street. And the end of Hillsborough, he also thought, although it wasn't unpleasant, it should too have the same framing done in brick with the metal panel inserts for a softer look. So in the design review report, the design reviewer indicated that several variances were required to obtain board approval. And those would have to go to planning board and be approved prior to building permit stage. So staff will review the design reviewer's recommendations pertaining to the required variance, and we will forward a detailed report to planning board following public notification of the requested variances. In terms of parking, there was 88 existing spaces on the polyclinic building, and those will be removed and replaced within the new building. So this area right here was where the new building is being located, was parking, and all the parking now will be located within that building. So staff does agree with the design reviewer that it is a unique property because it is bounded by 4 streets. And from staff's point of view, the primary consideration of this application is whether the requested variances will negatively impact the adjacent properties in this area. So in particular, the small apartment building that's located here on Prince Street, and then there's another smaller building on Hillsborough Street. So the board should consider massing in relation to these buildings. Staff are most concerned with proximity of the proposed building to these smaller buildings, and it's difficult to tell how close the proposed building will be located to the smaller apartment building on Prince Street. We do have a survey plan, but it didn't indicate the actual setback from the building to these 2 buildings. So they're located there and the setback wasn't included. So in order to properly assess those variances, we would need a more detailed survey indicating those setbacks. So the next most significant variance is the location of the proposed parking structure. Again, that will be assessed by planning board. And then the least concern with regard to variances is the proximity of the building to the street or laneway. So there's buildings on Clark Street. There's sort of like an alleyway, streetway here, and then we have some buildings on Kent Street. So we're just wondering also what the impact would be to those buildings along Clark Street. Staff are also working with the manager of Public Works to ensure that Clark Street is not compromised as far as encroachment, while still ensuring that the building can be constructed on that site. So the applicant is proposing to bring the building right up basically to the Clark Street property boundary, and we have to consult with the Public Works manager just to make sure that there wouldn't be any encroachments that would affect snow removal and things like that. The applicant is also indicating that the existing power lines along Clark Street would need to be relocated, and he has indicated that he would do that at his own expense. So also with Clark Street, as I mentioned earlier, the board should take into consideration if there would be any impacts to the properties that would be north of Clark Street on Kent Street. So the design reviewer has indicated that the exit to the parking structure on Prince Street effectively provides a step back of this building. Staff would request that design review board pay particular attention to the street frontage to determine whether they agree with the design reviewer's assessment. Staff are less concerned about the step backs on the north and south elevations of the buildings. So this is the east facing Hillsborough, and then we have the west elevation facing Prince Street, and then these two elevations, south and north, are the ones that we're least concerned with step backs. The more significant streetscapes on the project are both Prince and Hillsborough facades. Whoops. Which are these two facades. And then there are some renderings further on. So this is the Prince Street facade, and then I don't believe we actually have a really good rendering of the Hillsborough facade. The applicant is also required to provide 10% landscaping on site, and the design reviewer didn't comment on landscaping within his report. I'm just going back to the site plan. Said I was going to wait till the end, but I just want to point this out. This corner parking lot here is what we're about to talk about. So staff, before we go to the planning board, we have to ensure that all of these green spaces meet the 10% requirement. But this parking lot that's located on the corner of Grafton and Prince, according to our calculations, there's sufficient parking within the proposed building to meet the parking requirement. So we're questioning why these 8 spaces are needed on the corner. Staff feels that that's a prominent corner in the downtown, and the location of the parking does not enhance the overall aesthetic and urban design of that corner. It's located near Province House, and you have the church across the street and Coles building, all those buildings in that area, so it is a fairly prominent corner. So staff would encourage that the design review board focus in on this area and provide any suggestions about what urban design and landscaping features would enhance this prominent corner. Landscaping or urban design features may be used to acquire public benefits as well for this project. We're not suggesting that the whole lot be given to the city or used for landscaping, but at least a portion of it should be used to address that corner. So staff would also follow up with the Public Works Manager to determine whether the access to the proposed parking lot is too close to the abutting intersection, because they do have an entrance and an exit here, and there are requirements that Public Works have with how close an intersection, a driveway can be to an intersection, especially with that being a corner lot. Staff, just to move on, we're suggesting, as far as the parking garage, mitigative measures when cars are entering and exiting the building, so that pedestrians are notified when they're walking and a car is coming out. So we're suggesting that some kind of alarm be installed so that people are aware that a car is either going to enter or exit the building. So, when the application goes to a public hearing, staff and council will hear from the adjoining property owners, as well as the residents to the north who back onto Clark Street, what their views are on this project. But it would be helpful if if the design review board could focus in and indicate if they feel the proposed building can be constructed generally where it's proposed on the site. If the design review board has concerns with regard to the requested variances, it would be great if you could identify those concerns now, so that the application doesn't move to planning board and variances are denied, because that would just lengthen the process for the applicants. So if we could identify anything now that may need to be adjusted, that would be best. The intent of the design review board is to assess not only the design elements of the project, but factor in these requested variances to determine if design changes can mitigate the impact of those proposed variances to adjacent properties. So, in conclusion, staff are prepared to support the proposal with the design reviewer's recommendation for integrating the brick on the Prince Street and Hillsborough facades that were referenced earlier. As noted, by the design reviewer, Clark Street facade should continue as it is with the lower 2 floors open, but the structure would look better and be more durable if finished in the same brick as on Prince Street while leaving the railings and cars visible to the viewer. The end at Hillsborough should have the framing done in brick with metal panels, inserts for a softer look. Staff would welcome any suggestions that the Design Review Board has to offer with regard to that surface parking treatment that I discussed earlier. And we're generally in support of the application and feel that some small adjustments outlined in the report could contribute to the overall design of the building and the streetscape. So if there's any questions I can answer, feel free, and I can just flip through it's a little easier to see the concepts, the renderings.
So it's exit brick.
Yeah.
Exit brick, amen.
So this is like from Prince Street, if you're looking from Prince Street. Also from Prince Street, just a bit of a different angle. This would be the parking garage, the exit.
So is it the exit and entry on Prince and Hillsborough, both? Exit and entry of both?
Sort of, I think.
Both are two-way.
What's that?
Both
Yeah,
are
I think it
two-way.
is two ways.
Yeah, I know, so.
Yeah,
I
it
couldn't
is.
see, I couldn't figure it out.
Laurel, the height variance, 6 stories are allowed.
With
What-
bonus height.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So how much is the variance for? Do you- It must be over the 10%.
Yeah, it's, so in the reviewer's report, he said the height variance to 6 stories, if bonus height can be justified, requires a 6+ foot variance. And height variance to 4 stories, if bonus height cannot be justified, requires a 4+ foot variance.
But just for your benefit, this will be, and there's a lot of variances embedded in this
Yeah.
application, but because there's so many variances, it'll go to a site-specific amending process for exemption, which is a rezoning. It's because there's so many variances that it'll be looked at in its holistically as opposed to individual variances.
I see.
Yeah. It's a more robust process to allow people to participate because it's not only a large building, but there's a lot of variances that are being sought.
Right.
So we have those variances listed, because I was
Yes.
trying to, they are listed in the report,
In the report, yeah.
page,
I have a shortened version, but I think Alex has the full
It's,
version.
they're on page number 4 of Laurel's report. Laurel also mentioned that you do have an elevation, I'm sure, Laurel on Hillsborough Street, so.
I have an elevation, but I don't have the concept.
Right, but we do have a copy of that concept plan that may have not made it in the package.
Yeah, so there's the elevation facing Hillsborough, and this is the parking garage here. And you see it side on, you can see the step back that the reviewer's talking about. So it extends out from the main building.
Is there a reason why they did that? It just didn't build the building all the way to Hillsborough Street?
I'm not sure.
And is that like a green space or just roof up? I know it's, like it just says, it says roof deck on this plan.
the variances.
No.
Yeah, so you can see, this is it here, and then the main building.
The applicants here, you may ask them to elaborate a little bit more on that particular aspect of the project.
Roof terrace. Anyway,
8 points.
Alex, when you said the variance is on page 4, are those the 6, just the 6 listed there?
Yeah, right, I mean, this, the design review is happening before this goes on. There's a more rigorous process
Yeah.
in front. Now, this is the design reviewer's calling of things.
Yeah.
We may pick up something additionally, but I think the majority of them are in there. So, again, that's what he was trying to reference. And what we're trying to determine in this application, most applications don't require any variances and you just comment on the design. This one is both the design and there's a number of variances. We can't predetermine how those variances are going to be received by the public, but if you think that the design could either be improved by either not granting one of those variances, or this would be the time to have that discussion. And before it moves on, we start granting variances, and then somebody says, well, the building could have been a lot stronger if it didn't go in that direction early on.
But, Mr. Chair, but they're not major variances. Height variance,
Right.
6 stories, and bonus height. Bonus height can be justified, requires a 6 plus minus variance.
Right.
Okay? Height variance to 4 stories, and bonus height cannot be justified, requires 4 plus minus.
And we would agree with that assessment. I think near the end of the report, I think the report indicates that the zoning bylaw, I'm going to read it here, can be rigid with regard to how it determines site parameters. So the zoning bylaw decides where the front yard is, where the rear yard is, and in some cases, they're not really functional the way they work. That's what the design reviewer is indicating. They're not there. Where he's indicating where he thinks the sensitivity should be is not the way the bylaw defines it, but we have to tidy that up in the zoning bylaw. So we say the zoning bylaw can be rigid with regard to how it determines site parameters on all properties, but the design review board needs to be mindful of the requested variances, but not necessarily constrained if they feel the final product can be integrated on this block without negative impacts.
Right.
So you're anticipating like there may be some issues or not with those variances, but it's just a matter of how can we integrate this project on that block through the additional process that will come and get the best product possible without getting hung up on this is the frontage, this is the rear. If it's going to work, that's fine. If it's not going to work, regardless of the variances, this is the place to have that discussion.
Right, so forget the variances, is the building working?
Does the building work? And again, even though it's not this board's requirement, but there are property owners adjacent to that, and they will have a different lens than you do. But it's just a matter of just kind of keep that in mind that those property owners are going to, experience a change when this building is in there. But again, can we get a design in there that works for them and for the city holistically?
So these variances are strongly related to the design only.
Exactly, because you'll realize where they're not meeting the some components of the bylaw, but again, as the mayor had alluded to, they're not significant. But again, when they come forward, I mean, if you're the neighbor, your feeling of what's significant can be different, but that's the process designed to handle those questions and answers at that time.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Just to give some background, this is the neighborhood I grew up in. My wife grew up on Grafton Street, so we know the area. Prior to the parking lot, there was a huge apartment building there. I think they used to refer to it as the Red Onion, but it was a huge apartment building, and there were buildings off Clark Street. But the design here will continue to keep the integrity of Clark Street, correct? We're not closing that up. It will remain as a side street. Prince Hillsborough will have access to the park garage, both in and out, and then it backs on to, I call it it was Stuart McKay that built that building in the first place. It was Stuart McKay's, where the polyclinic is. That was, it's a Stuart McKay building.
Yeah.
So it was a high rise in Charlottetown when it went up, but this I think will complement the building. There will be 84 units, correct?
Yes.
And of the 84 under CMHC, I think he's applying, the applicant, how many will be affordable?
Well, he's indicated, from what I understand, I think all of them are meant to be affordable, but he might be able to clarify that better when he comes in to speak.
Okay. And maybe that's the segue. If no one else has any questions to...
Just have a point.
Councilor
So
Yankoff.
really, the only thing we're doing today is looking at, and staff is recommending that we do proceed with design review and recommendations. We're not deciding today on anything else except for that, whether or not we think that the first step is a good start to continue.
It'll be recommended to council via resolution.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyone else have any
The
queries or
removal of that
concerns?
8 parking places, is that going to be?
Well, we are just suggesting I mean, we feel that corner is a very important corner, and it would be better not to have 8 parking spaces there.
Could it be a green space?
Yes, and maybe some urban design components on that corner. One I can bring your attention to is when we did the, I think it's called the AIM Trimark building on the corner of Euston and University. We pushed for them to integrate some urban design on that corner. So we ended up with some landscaping, some nice paving, like stone pavers, benches, those kinds of things. And we're not saying that the whole lot has to be used for that, but definitely I would think, especially in this area of the city, you'd want to see, some kind of corner consideration there. And then the other thing, which we haven't had time to speak to the Public Works manager yet, is these entrances to the parking lot on both sides of the, on both ends of the corner, if that would meet their requirements anyway, because I know we generally do when we run into corner lots, especially one that's this busy, we run into issues with access.
And the curb not there.
No,
No.
so you'd be creating new accesses.
I think that's currently used by the medical staff within
It
the
is.
polyclinic building.
Yeah, it is.
Certainly other places.
What's in the building, the little building, the yellow building or orange building now? Is that?
That's been under renovation for some time.
It's been renovated,
Yeah.
but there's no one in it, is there?
There was a barber, but I don't know what's there.
Oh, the Rosa
Yes,
Barber, yeah.
Is it not occupied now?
Oh, it is?
I think it is.
I think,
Yeah, because they had, the one where Trevor had an incident.
So is it apartments?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
okay. Laurel, do you want to ask the developer if you'd like to come in,
Sure.
please?
Clark Street doesn't get used very much, does it?
No.
Did,
Yeah,
did.
It did, but it doesn't now. It's just sort of a cut through, isn't it?
yeah,
It is.
yeah. Hmm? I, well,
Okay. Should be noted.
it is,
Okay, good.
yeah. April 1st, sister.
We're making comments about David's Drive. Is that
Yeah,
in there?
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Kim, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Hi, Kate.
Mike?
Welcome, folks. Floor is yours, Mr. Banks.
Hello, how are you?
Fine.
Okay, the audio wasn't really good in there, so I couldn't hear all the things 100%. Can I take the mask off?
Sure,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
sure.
Thank you. I didn't hear all the things. We've reviewed over Mr. Fellow's report, and we're good with a number of things in it. The brick on the side of Clark Street, no problem, and the brick at the back on Hillsborough, no problem. The 3-foot setback, we can go 2 feet. We have parking stalls in Charlottetown that are 20 foot in depth. And so to make the parking garage work as a public parking garage and get the drive lanes through, we need X number of feet. And so typically in other markets, they're generally 18 feet long because our cars are smaller now, but here the regulation, so we need a variance there if we compress the building because it wouldn't necessarily fit. With respect to his comment with the slope of the driving lanes, do we have a video presentation here or no?
We have, there's a,
We've built a number of buildings with that slope on them that they meet the National Building Code, the fire code, and
this is what we have too, we can just flip through, but the concept drawings are closer to the end.
okay. So is this ours, Kane, or
No.
no? It's not ours. So
Do you have your own presentation? or-
Kane didn't bring it with him. He had sent it to. But anyway, we've built similar buildings with the slope, so we know that by code and that it'll work, and it'll work by market. The issue on the corner lot, I could only hear a bit of it, that's what I'm saying on the problem. We'll clean up the lot and do something aesthetically landscaping, but the developer, being Morris Holdings, the owners of the building who we represent, intend to further develop that property. And one of the plans coming forward for the development is this scheme here, and it's not officially publicly announced yet. So we just can't really comment on it now, but you're welcome to look at it if we're allowed to look at it. And with that, we're going to try to completely improve the streetscape of Grafton Street with the intent here. So currently in the building right now, we've renegotiated the lease with the Lawton's Pharmacy. We've redeveloped the third floor of the building with the osteopath, and we have the complete second floor released with the province with Health PEI. And we've also, in the lower level of the deal, we've signed a lease with CBI, which is a national health tenant, that are taking about 75% of the lower floor, and we're starting a significant renovation there. And we're moving some of the doctors from the second floor up to the fourth floor. So when we're done at the end of the day, we're going to have a pretty unique health clinic with the intent of moving into the building as well, naturopathic medicine as well. So it's part of the whole scheme of the project. So again, we have no problem with the report in terms of trying to deliver up what the consultant is suggesting to you. And we'd like to get to a public meeting as quickly as we can. There was a questionnaire related to the affordable units. We're doing the same program that was done in Summerside. Our intent is to have 60 affordable units and then have market units above that on the top floor. And that helps mediate the cost of the development itself. We may end up with 66 affordable units, but we will guarantee binded in our development agreement 60 units. But we could get as far as 66, and it's all a financial puzzle. And because we have to keep those rents down lower, and we have to make up for some of them by getting a little lift on the other part of the rents. So again, we're prepared to put that in the development agreement. And I couldn't hear, like, in just my age, I guess, didn't really. So was there any other questions you'd like me to address?
Yeah, just last week, Councillor Ramsey and I met with the MP for Charlottetown,
John Casey?
Mr. Casey,
Yeah.
and he was talking about the affordable housing project out there on the Towers Road. I think
Yes.
Diane McQuaid.
Yeah.
I believe she's got 60 units and 23 of the units will be 70% or affordable,
Yeah.
and 37 will be market value.
Yeah.
And that's through CMHC. I think that project is what, 14 million? I think that's what they
I'm
announced.
not familiar with the project, but I can tell you in Summerside, the project was, I think, 70 units, and there was 40 of them that were affordable units. And the project that we're doing over for King's Housing Corporation over on Acadian Drive, it's 60 units and 50 of them are affordable. And the ones that we own over in Stratford, the new building over there, is 30 units with 30 affordable units.
Right.
And in Montague, the new building we just opened as well, is 30 affordable units and 15 market units in it. So this building we're proposing downtown is going to have a larger percentage of affordable units than any other building that we're aware of in the marketplace, from a private developer's perspective.
Yeah, and are you using the same formula CMHC, 70%?
Yeah, it's called the Flex program, And we'll be entering into that agreement with them, and the whole project is conditional upon us getting that, because it reduces the interest rate on the project to make it viable. And we've done our level best to bring forward, we just didn't take a couple of days to put this project together. We spent months at it in terms of trying to understand the bylaws in relationship to the cost, the capital cost of the building. And we looked at, going 2 floors below for parking, and the capital cost didn't work. And then we looked at the density issue with the parking of just doing 2 levels of parking and reducing 1 floor in height. And then the parking numbers didn't work for the whole project. So that's the reason it got pushed up. And at one point we were trying to get 100 units in. It just, it was going to be too big at the end of the day. So we got to where we felt was a good compromise, and I think that the consultant has said that there was a lot of thought in our project.
Okay, anyone else question or concern or suggestion of Mr. Banks?
Greg,
Okay.
did you want to follow up on your question about the deck?
The roof deck, yes, yeah, thank you.
The roof deck,
Yes. Yeah, just wondering why the building didn't extend all the way to Hillsborough Street, or why is there going to be like a garden deck?
Yes, we've noted that in our secondary drawings. I don't know if they're there, but we intend, just as he says in his deal, was we're going to put green space up there and an area for our tenants. That was our intent, and the entire roof of the building, together with the roof of the existing structure next door, we're putting photo-tag solar panels on the entire roof, as we did in our building over at the shorefront.
Also, Greg, is the fact that we wanted to keep some natural light into the existing building. If we were to bring the building completely forward, it'd be blocking more of that back.
And that's where we were at 100 units before we were taking them back to the street, and we wanted to get light into the existing structure as well, and we wanted to get light into the green space between the 2 buildings. And so that's one of the issues. If we push it back too far, we tighten up our green space. So we did spend a lot of time looking at all those variables on building.
So, Mr. Banks, the value of the project is are you privy to say that, or is that still?
It's in the neighborhood of 21 million.
And just on the corner issue again, corner of Prince and Grafton Street, where you have the parking spaces there now.
Yeah,
There's no access to Grafton or Prince, but in the drawings there will be. I think that's what
Can we go back to that then?
Laura said. I think it's open, there's some.
Are you referring to the private physician parking lot on the
Yeah,
corner?
which is there now.
There's access to it now, and it'll remain
Off Clark,
off ground.
Off Grafton, there is access onto it now.
but not off Prince.
No. that's
No,
right.
not off Prince.
So we'll continue off Grafton.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we have a lease signed with a bunch of the doctors there for those spaces. But we'll clean it up. We'll take the guardrail down and do, some landscaping issues. And I think moving the building back on Clark Street a couple of feet will allow us to do some landscaping along there. And it'll deal with, a lot easier for us to deal with the Maritime Electric issue. Maritime Electric do not have an easement through our property currently. And we have that. So, they're going to work with us, whatever we do there. It'll be our cost, and we intend to absorb that, but it'll make it a lot easier.
Councillor Yankoff.
Just to follow up, Mr. Banks, when you referred to the Maritime Electric struggles, they had mentioned before you came in that you would be looking after the power lines. Are you thinking of burying them?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yep, 100%.
Great.
Yep,
That would be a big improvement.
our intent from day one.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is a great project for the downtown.
Yep.
Great project. Affordable and accessible and ready to go.
Anyone else? Sharon, Ken, Chris, you guys all right? Everybody okay? Thank you very much, Mr. Banks. Thank you, Kane, for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of a very sunny day.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, on the resolution that this board is directing staff to follow up on what you want us to do as opposed to go to council. The only circumstance where the resolution or something goes to council, if there's a disagreement between the design reviewer or staff and this board, they're the arbiter. So whatever you apply to your recommendations, it is part of the record, but it's direction to staff to work with them to follow up on those components that we discussed today.
So this recommendation goes from this room to Mr. Kelly?
No, it's basically back to staff to work with them
Oh.
to finalize it, and then
Okay.
we will move into the next phase of the development application, and we will indicate that, the resolutions to this process, and then
Okay.
we'll move into the next one.
So Laurel will get from Ellen the concerns or issues?
Right.
Or-
The recommendation is the same, but you're recommending, in this case, because we're all in agreement, you're recommending back to staff to get these components
Okay.
whatever you want, you're telling us to work with the
Okay.
developer to
Okay,
finalize those.
I understand.
Hey, Alex, what timeline are we looking at? Are we looking at April, May, June? What's the timeline?
There's a few more details that, if you approve this today, we'll send off a list as soon as we can to the applicant in regard to some information that would be helpful as we move forward. There's a little bit of time, because there'll be a public hearing, but it's always nice to have as much information as possible, but either go to the planning board if it can get there in April. The recommendation will be to go to public consultation. So hopefully, where the applicant needs to be really prepared is when you go to the public hearing, that information, any outstanding information should be available at that time. It's even better if it's in the package earlier on.
Okay. So are the people here today comfortable with recommending one way or the other to the staff? The staff follow up with the observations, concerns that were aired here today, as recorded by.
So you can take a motion to approve the recommendation as alluded to in the.
Yeah, I'm open for that motion. Moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Greg Munn.
So just in the discussion, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So timeline, we're looking at public meeting maybe in April or May?
I would say that, council is whatever, middle of, what's the April council date?
It's the second.
Fourth,
so it'll be
the planning
12th.
is for 12.
It could be late April, if you can make that April meeting, yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on that resolution? Ready for the question? All those in favor? All those opposed? Julie?
I'm good.
Thank you. Passed unanimously. I think that concludes our business for today. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by by Ken McGinnis, seconded by Greg Munn, that we stand adjourned. Thank you very much, folks, for coming in. Kept it under the.
Bye.
See you, Julie.